Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can all hear me loud and clear. It's a lovely evening here in Nairobi. The sun is still bright. It's been a lovely day. Would be good to at least, if you can put your video for a few minutes for just us to see you at the beginning, but you can turn it off as soon as you are able to. Welcome to this Rural Water Supply Annual Meeting. My name is James Origa. I serve as a water supply sanitation specialist with the World Bank Group based in our office here in Nairobi. I have a portfolio in Kenya, Somalia, and Tanzania, supporting different scales of water supply and sanitation projects. I'm also honored to serve as the chair of the executive committee of the Rural Water Supply Network on behalf of the bank. I just want to welcome you today. This is the second round of the annual meeting sessions that you've had. We had one earlier, which went on very well in the morning. Just to tell you, this is the inaugural annual meeting. I think the network membership in past engagements agreed that this would be a good forum to have for network members to enhance, the engagements and improve the governance of the network. So welcome very much. I would request you, if you can introduce yourself in the chat box, just drop there your name, the organization, and where you are joining us from, and you can add any other information that you'd like us to know. For example, the name of your favorite pet. If you have one, if you'd like us to know that, feel free to do so. But thank you very much for joining this particular evening. So just some few housekeeping issues to highlight. This webinar is multilingual. There is simultaneous translation into English, French, and Spanish. So if you can choose your language by clicking the interpretation icon on the bottom bar. It can be hidden somewhere in the more button, so you can click there. Then you select the language you like to hear, whether French, Spanish, or English. So please go ahead and do that to make sure that we have everyone. The meeting is recorded, as you've seen a prompt come on your screen. The purpose of doing this is just to record these presentations and share with the network members afterwards, those who are not able to join this evening. Please continue introducing yourself. We will be sharing questions and comments in the chat box. You can continue doing this in response to the presentations made, or if you just have any general inquiry you want to make about the network that we have answers to, we'll be happy to just drop it there. Then just to highlight that at the end of the meeting, we'll share a short survey at the end of the webinar just to get your feedback on how we can improve this and make this way much better. Just a quick run through what we have on the agenda this evening. We are right now through the welcoming and opening remarks, which myself and David, the vice chair, will give. Then after that, I will invite Sean. David will invite Sean to talk about the rural water supply network strategy, which was recently launched this year, just to highlight, what is our direction of travel, what is the rationale behind this, and what are the values, collective values that we hold as we walk that journey. Then Aline will come and give network updates on what has been happening throughout this year, highlighting some of the good stories and successes, some of the challenges as well. Then after that, the substantive and the main part of this particular meeting is the members forum. This is the members meeting. So we have select presentation from some thematic areas, leave no one behind, sustainable groundwater development and sustainable services. Then after that, we'll have a few closing remarks just to end the day, hoping everyone will be happy by the end of the day. We strive to make everyone happy. We will not distribute ice creams or chocolates, but we hope the presentations, the discussions will make you very happy throughout the sessions. So I think I just want to appreciate that this to note that this is my first, annual meeting as the chair. I just came on board a few months ago. Want to register my very sincere appreciation for the executive committee members and the network for considering me to take this opportunity to lead this network. I have shared some of my initial thoughts on what I see as the direction of travel and the value add of this particular network. And I also speak on behalf of the entire World Bank Group, who are very excited to, I share this on behalf of the World Bank Group. So receive the sentiments of the entire practitioners in the water sector at the World Bank Group. I just want to highlight, some thoughts which I already shared in the newsletter, which was November newsletter. If you haven't seen that, please go ahead and take a look on what I think we should really look at as a focus. And the first of this is, the extent of our commitment to our water supply. We all appreciate the challenges, and one of the remaining big challenges in the space is functionality of services, sustainability of services, ensuring that the infrastructure that is built lasts longer. That requires a shift from, moving from an infrastructure focus to a service delivery focus. And that will call on each of us as professionals in this space, as organizations in this space, to have a commitment beyond the infrastructure, to stay and support the communities that we seek to support beyond just delivering the infrastructure, supporting them, committing to be there to the extent that is possible to make sure that services are sustained. And the second thing is really embedding sustainability from the onset in how we design the systems, how we engage with the communities. I strongly believe if we look at this, if we have this perspective and consideration in our engagements in this space, we'll be able to do more good in a sustainable way. So I look forward for the next couple of months, years, to engaging with each one of you, working with each one of you, really to really make this network a preferred meeting point around the three specific outcomes, which of the strategy, which Sean will come on board and highlight. So allow me to invite David Diami to make a few remarks as we start, then invite Sean to pick it up from there. Over to you, David.
Thank you, James, for this great introduction. My name is David Diarmi. I am the Senior Director of Global Partnerships at Water for Good. And I have joined the steering committee of RWSN about a year ago on behalf of an alliance that Water for Good is part of called One for All. One for All is an alliance that is a global collaboration of organizations working together to achieve sustainable universal access to water, sanitation, and hygiene through system strengthening and partnerships. So I'm here serving on the steering committee as vice chair. I'm happy to be participating and collaborating with everybody today. And I'm also here as the ears and the eyes of the One for All Alliance. And I'm honored to speak about the vital role that the Rural Water Supply Network, their working groups play in mutually advancing each other's goals. So these thematic groups are more than just technical forums. They're hubs of innovation, of collaboration and knowledge exchange that directly align with our missions. Our mission to strengthen sustainable water, sanitation, and hygiene systems worldwide. So RWSN's groups provide actionable insights that help bridge global expertise with local realities, and that's something that we're very mindful of. So this synergies not only equips the One for All Alliance to tackle the unique challenges of WASH in rural areas, but also ensures our strategies are grounded in evidence and enriched by these diverse perspectives. I'm personally very interested in the themes that are about to be discussed as we, as an alliance, as Water for Good, we work in a lot of places where people are left behind and where sustainable services are really hard to come by. So I'm excited about the discussions today. and the presentations. And I'm happy to pass it on to Sean, who will take it to the next phase of this meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you, James. Thank you, David, for that great introduction. And it's really wonderful to have both of you on the executive committee and as strong partners to help us take the network forward. So the next 10 minutes, I want to just introduce you to the RWSN strategy from this year to 2030, which will take us to the end of the SDG period. And why is it needed? Well, it's needed because 550 million people of the 703. Oh, hang on a minute. Apparently, I'm not slide sharing. Thank you for that. There we go. Thank you, team. Can you see it now? Everything good? Yeah. Okay, so we need to, oh, that's really thrown me off now. Sorry. We need it because 550 million of the 703 million people worldwide that lack access to even basic drinking water services live in rural areas. We work globally to bring rural water professionals together to share, learn, and collaborate so that rural water services are universally accessible, safely managed, resilient, and sustainable by 2030. Our vision is of a world in which all people enjoy safely managed water services that are resilient and sustainable. I just want to highlight that from our previous strategy, we've actually removed the word rural. And the reason for that is to recognize that when we're looking at water resources, water services, and everything that feeds on that, it's urban water supplies rely on rural areas. It's where the catchments are, it's where the aquifers are. And so that relates to how rural peoples manage the land, manage the landscapes and the water resources within it. So people are tied together. The aim of the network and of the strategy is to improve the quality of rural water services and their management. And our mission as a network is to be a professional knowledge network that provides a convening space for individual professionals and organizations to share experiences, collaborate, develop guidelines, standards, curate knowledge, and promote lifelong learning in the rural water sector. And specifically, we want to inspire and support more women to become active at all levels of decision-making. Our values as a network that we see that people are at the heart of solving the rural water supply challenges. We are an open network that encourages belonging through mutual respect and trust. We're about listening and learning and collaborating. These are core to eliminating poverty and unsafe water access. We lead by example with professionalism, high quality work integrity, and a focus on water user needs. We acknowledge that everyone is a problem solver and has agency, but that structural and systematic hindrances and inequalities exist, and that solving complex challenges requires diversity of voices, backgrounds, and experience, and benefits from interdisciplinary working within and between organizations. And in these values that we hopefully you share with us, we really have been shaped by many people, but in particular past chairs of the network. I'm very happy that we have at least two past chairs joining us this afternoon, Clarissa Rocklehurst and Richard Carter. But sadly, two of our past chairs are unable to join us. Louisa Gosling, who passed away earlier this year, and Ton Skelton, who passed away, 8 years ago now. But both played a very influential role in shaping the network and these values that we have. So what we've learned over the last 30 odd years since the network started in 1992 as the Hand Pump Technology Network is that where we can really add value of these three pillars. It's around networking, connecting, and convening. where we help by being a meeting point and a matchmaker and a helpline for rural water professionals, through knowledge brokering and being an information hub and being that trusted source of guidelines and documented experience and evidence, and through training guidelines and standards, where we identify gaps and develop practical training and technical guidelines and standards that can be used across different contexts. And our ambition for 2030 is to just accelerate all of these. So in terms of extending our membership and our reach so that more people can find us and find each other. In particular, we want to increase our membership in Latin America and the Caribbean and in Asia. And our recent project that we'll hear about called SEWASH, we've been active in the Latin America region this year. For knowledge brokering, we want to increase the knowledge exchange, information exchange at the global level, but also at the national and regional level between members, and curate more resources in non-English languages, specifically French, Portuguese, and Spanish. And we want to broaden our training and mentoring offer to be the go-to center for professional development and accreditation certification in the rural water sector through partnerships with existing organizations. So we believe that by doing this, we will make a significant contribution to the vision and mission that we've set out for ourselves. In terms of the scope, the thematic scope of the network, very narrowly, the focus is being a lot of the time on safe, affordable, reliable drinking water in the home. That is generally what is defined in Sustainable Development Goal 6.1 and also the human right to water. But of course, that's not just what water is used for, particularly in rural areas where rural people use multiple water sources throughout the year for multiple purposes. And those can be in and around the home. Water use and safe disposal is important for non-potable uses, including hygiene and sanitation. Water for nutrition and income close to the home and the neighborhoods. So for livestock, for smallholder farming, for artisanal income generation. And then all of that feeds into the wider, bigger picture of effective water supply service delivery, water safety management, and then beyond that, water source protection, water resources management, and climate resilience. So we're operating at all these different scales from the tap all the way to the water cycle. And so to do that, we do that through a collection of thematic areas. So right now we have 6, but we're developing a 7th on water quality and water safety. And together we do a variety of activities that you'll hear about today, based around news updates and sharing information, webinars, mentoring, networking, events, conferences, workshops, publications and articles, online discussion groups, and action groups. But a network is about people. So RWSN doesn't legally exist as an organization. So it's really the people that bring it together, that bind everything together. So we have an incredible executive committee. You've already heard from James and David, but we also have representatives from the African Development Bank, from BGR, Ramon is here today, from the Global Water Center, from SCAT Foundation, UNICEF, the World Bank, WaterAid, and Welthunghilfe. And then the engine of the network are the theme leaders. So we have fantastic theme leaders from all over the world, from research, from NGOs, from government, from the private sector, from big organizations to independent consultants. And they're just a wonderful group of people who are incredibly knowledgeable. And my team in the Secretariat, I'm supported very ably by Aline and Fatima and our colleagues in SCAT Foundation more broadly. And then we have all our amazing project partners that we work with throughout the year. But all of this is about, at the end of the day, is about the membership of the network, which is all of you. So both our individual members and our member organizations. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Aline to take us through what we've been up to this year.
Yes, thank you so much, Sean, for this update on the strategy. Sorry, I can just spotlight myself. Fantastic. So as Sean said, the webinars are really a big engine of our engagement, of our convening power, and of our knowledge sharing. So we had 2 webinar series this year. We started with the early series running from April to June, where we had the 2 webinars from Stop the Rot project and the webinars of Leave No One Behind, Data for Action team, and self-supply. And then now we are finishing the late webinar series, which started on 12th of November. In this series, we have had many collaborations with Agenda for Change, with the USAID, Design Outreach, with the REACH program. We had another webinar from Stop the Rot, and we are having tomorrow a webinar with WaterAid. So I invite you all to register and attend this webinar tomorrow that will be discussing in more detail professionalization of rural and small town water supply management. We had also earlier this year a collaboration with WHO to launch their updated guidelines for small drinking water and associated sanitary inspection tools. This was our biggest webinar to date. We had over 2,000 people registering and over 1,000 attending live. So if we move to the next slide. Another big activity that we had this year was our mentoring program. So RWSN has been running a mentoring program for young professionals and women of all ages in the water sector since 2019. Melissa, our former colleague, was spearheading this initiative. And this year we've joined forces with Agenda for Change. They ran last year a program, Women in WASH, which was mentoring only for women in the water sector. So this year we have collaborated and hosted together the mentoring program with over 290 participants. And because of this collaboration, 70% of the participants were actually female. So we are achieving one of our strategic goals of empowering more women in the water sector. Some improvements to the program this year were onboarding and exit sessions that we had with mentors and mentees. We hosted also the career days in May with sessions, for instance, with Josh from Josh Water Jobs, giving some advice on how to do job searching, how to prepare yourself for a new position, how to manage transitions in the WASH space. We had also sessions on mid-career changes and spotlight series of different careers that you can have in WASH. We also hosted monthly office hours on the mentoring program, covering various technical issues that mentees were more interested about. So for instance, one of the office hours was focused on networking, another on productivity and time management. And we had also a session sharing more about online training and resources that are available for career progression for young professionals. You can read more about the experiences from mentors and mentees on the RWSN blog or on the Agenda for Change blog. Another highlight related to this program was the event that we hosted in Stockholm with Stronger Together, which is a coalition of various women networks and other organizations such as Agenda for Change and GWOPA. And we hosted this face-to-face event in Stockholm, which was very lively and enabled us to have this networking for women working on the water sector. If we move to the next slide. We had also some publications this year. And if you look at our website, we have managed to revamp our website. Please go and check it out. We had this collaboration with Global Water Center and QUAST to develop the study on capacity needs assessment. And we also had the publication by Professor Richard Carter on who will foot the bill for sustainable rural water services earlier this year. Can move to the next. We have contributed to several third-party publications. You can see some of the examples on the slide. We can move to the next. And some of the other activities that we have engaged on this year. I mentioned already that we have this active partnership with Agenda for Change. So we have hosted with them a webinar earlier in this series that was focused on system strengthening. That this was also a very well attended and lively discussion event. We have been active on the UN Water Innovation Task Group, and we are also engaging on the World Water Development Report processes. So one of our team leaders has contributed to the 2025 World Water Development Report, and Ifrija Luzeka from Leave No One Behind is engaging on the 2026 report, which will be focusing on gender. She has written a blog post about some of these experiences. We are active on the campaign for lead-free water group, and we hosted earlier this year a member organization event focused on solar-powered water systems. You'll hear a little bit about this on the presentation of the groundwater theme. And one of the things that we do to keep curating knowledge, we have our monthly updates going to the network and 2 longer newsletters that are produced in English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. We have very active social media presence, with LinkedIn being our most engaged tool at the moment. Our LinkedIn group is nearly at 41,000 members, and our LinkedIn page also going towards 8,000 followers. And we also had partnerships with the Asian Development Bank earlier this year to host a e-marketplace focused on rural water solutions. We can move to the next slide. Just we'll give a brief highlight of some of the projects. As Sean mentioned, one of the pillars of RWSN is knowledge brokerage. So we are part of some research projects that are focused on rural water, and REACH is one of these projects led by the University of Oxford that funded by FCDO. So we have hosted water quality action group meetings. You might have noticed on our D groups, we now have a D group that is dedicated to water quality and water safety. So feel free to engage there if you want to exchange more knowledge or discuss challenges related to water quality. We hosted a couple of weeks ago a webinar on chlorination. So this was done in collaboration with the REACH program. We have done a number of studies in Kenya related to the research on performance-based mechanisms. And we have also supported the engagement with AMCO, having some of our stories on the Africa Voice of Water magazine. You can move to the next slide. Another project that we have engaged actively with is Real Water, led by the Acquire Institute that funded by USAID. One of the highlights with this project was the session that we hosted in Stockholm, focused on coordinating rural water investments to promote security and stability. So in this session, we convened ADB, AFDB, EU, FCDO, several bilateral and multilateral funders and development partners to discuss how to prioritize and how to coordinate investments in rural water. We also supported engagements of Real Water in Stockholm, and we keep updating you about developments on the program on our monthly newsletters and on our quarterly update as well. Next slide. Another project that we've been engaged with is the SERWASH, led by IDB and funded by SDC. So with SERWASH, we hosted a breakfast meeting in Stockholm in August. So we have been facilitating community of practice with multi-development bank partners. So mostly AFDB, IDB, ADB, and the World Bank. And we managed to launch a WhatsApp channel for our LAC community, our community from Latin America, that is now with nearly 300 followers. We have hosted some online conversations with networks and associations in Latin America, and we have been promoting South-to-South exchange with inputs for IDP learning events in rural WASH. Another interesting outcome of this project is that we are piloting now a RWSN artificial intelligent WhatsApp chatbot. And once we get the results more solid from the Latin America pilot, we plan to expand this to other regions that RWSN is active in. So the next slide. You will hear a little bit more about Stop the Rot on the Groundwater program, but this is just a quick update that, and Kirsten is here with us, so she can maybe speak a little bit about it later on. I'm just putting you on the spot, Kirsten, but just wanted to highlight that we'll have Stop the Rot program running for 3 more years. So you have benefited already a lot from the Stop the Rot webinars that we hosted. The last one was last week. And we look forward to have more engagements on this next phase of the program. And the next slide. We continue to collaborate closely with the Susanna Forum. Susanna is the Sustainable Sanitation Alliance, which is almost a twin sister to RWSN. So we focus more on rural water and they focus more on the sanitation aspects. So this collaboration is also ongoing for the next 2 years. And we've been working closely with them, mainly on the back end of activities. So with this, I'd like to move on to the next part. So I hand over back to Sean to introduce you to the team section. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Aline. That's wonderful, and I think that gives a good view of what RWSN is about, what we're up to. But now we're going to get into a bit more about you as members, and from that, from the perspective of our theme leaders. So in this second half of the annual meeting, we'll be deep diving into the Leave No One Behind theme, the Sustainable Groundwater Development theme, and the Sustainable Services theme. But let's start off with Leave No One Behind. So I think it's over to Sandra to kick us off.
Thank you so much. Yes, yeah, the first part of the team section will be Leave No One Behind. I'm here on behalf of my team. I'm leading this Leave No One Behind team together with Amita, Euphrasia, and Temple, and myself. And yeah, we're facilitating discussions online, and I will share a bit more in the coming slides. So next slide, please. I will first, there's a lot of text here, I'm sorry, but I want to share a little bit about what do we mean if we talk about Leave No One Behind. So it's about equality, non-discrimination, and inclusion. And this team is focusing on the practical realization of the human right to water, and also supporting the UN Special Rapporteur for water, and discussing with the members on how we can practically realize the human rights to water, also in light with other human rights, such as human right to sanitation, human right to food, human right to environment. Secondly, we're also working on gender equality and women's rights, empowering women and young girls, and promoting gender equality through rural water services as water users, but also as water professionals and decision makers. We're working on improving transparency, social accountability, and integrity. One of the topics we are working on is sextortion. Euphrasia has been very active around this topic. Menstrual health and perimenopausal health and other critical dimensions of hygiene that can deliver better public health outcomes is also something we are working on. I will also come back to that later. And overall, we're trying to overcome systematic barriers to inclusions, which can include physical access, affordability, remoteness, awareness and education, deliberate and unconscious bias against ethnic, racial, caste and socioeconomic groups, and unhelpful colonial legacies, and harmful or counterproductive post-neocolonial behaviors by international actors. So this is just a highlight of what we're discussing. So this year we've been doing different activities, so I will share a few highlights. So already mentioned by Aline is the Stronger Together Coalition that we also have been involved in. And there have been different women's networking mingles. So at the GWOPA conference, Stockholm World Water Week, and also the World Water Forum. And I think these are beautiful spaces where women can come together and discuss and network and exchange their challenges and mentor each other. So here's also a picture of the mingle in Cairo during the GWOPA annual meeting. On the next slide, we've also been attending the World Water Forum in Bali. And here we launched a policy paper around Leaving One Behind, which built up a campaign that we have been doing with many partners, where we wanted to make sure that the unheard are being heard. So we collected a lot of testimonies from different groups that are currently not having access to water. And we wanted to share their insights with the water sector. And we have been launching this during the World Water Forum in an official session, but also at the Spanish Pavilion, where also the Special Rapporteur for Human Rights, Water and Sanitation was present. On the next slide, we also had a webinar around incontinence. I think a topic that is not yet very much discussed. So it was a nice first attempt to create more awareness about this topic within the Rural Water Supply Network. And the recording you can still find online if you want to know more. Next slide, I added some links so you can, in your own time, look at that, what we have been doing this year. So there's a link to the policy paper, to the incontinence webinar, the sextortion blog on the RWSN website, and also there's a podcast. So there's many publications that you can look into. And there's always ongoing discussions on the email group. So if you have something to share or you have a question, feel free to email at equity@thegroups.org. On next slide, I will finish up with some plans for next year. So following the webinar on incontinence, we are also working on a brief publication around that. So hopefully we can do that next year. As already mentioned, we are working on inputting to the UN World Water Development Report, as is focused on water and gender. We are working on a topic of gender and climate change to link those two teams together, and always looking for cross-thematic collaborations, because Leaving One Behind is a cross-cutting topic. We're looking into possible collaboration with the International Water Alliance on the water safety planning in rural areas. And we're engaging with AMCAO on the implementation of the youth and gender inclusion strategy in Africa. If you have any suggestions on what we should focus on next year, please feel free to put something in the chat box. Then we can also discuss that later. So with that, I will end. And I think we have 3 pitches to go on next. So we'll leave the discussion for after the pitches. So the first pitch is from Matsi Alipo, the Fishermen Rest Community Projects from Harlot Zaunda. And I think it's a video. So Sean, please start the video.
Madzi Alipo, meaning there is water in Chichewa, is revolutionizing rural water supply in Malawi. Our professionalized hand pump maintenance and repair program achieves a district-wide average functionality of 91% across the whole of Blantyre Rural. This compares to just 61% when we first started supporting communities over 10 years ago. And across the 250 hand pumps included in our contract with the Results-Based Uptime Initiative, we're able to reach an impressive 99% functionality. Unlike comparable private sector solutions, our approach ensures a fairer, more accessible water service for everyone. The Madzi Alipo approach is one built on collaboration and innovation and bridges the gap between unsupported community management and privatized service provision. We empower communities to handle simple but important maintenance themselves, while our own expert repair teams respond to major breakdowns. Flexible payment options, including loans and savings plans, ensures the repair service is available to all communities. The introduction of innovative, better quality parts is dramatically improving reliability and increasing functionality. And all this is underpinned by our MAMS database, supported by our comprehensive water point monitoring and data collection. Today, we're monitoring over 4,300 hand pumps and serving more than 975,000 people across Blantyre rural and Nsanje districts. And at less than $100 per water point, Madzi Alipo is significantly more cost-effective than private sector alternatives. Looking ahead, we have an ambitious 10-year plan. Our immediate focus is a 2-year upgrade programme for all 2,500 hand pumps across Blantyre rural district, which based on tests to date suggest we will reduce hand pump breakdowns by up to 90%. Not only will this increase average hand pump functionality to the equivalent of just 1 week of downtime across the whole year, but will also bring significant ongoing programme cost savings. To realise this vision, we need your help. By partnering with us, you'll help to ensure longer-lasting, reliable water access for rural communities in Malawi. And together, we can work towards a future where no community and no household is left behind.
Thanks for this wonderful video pitch. Always nice to have a video. So let's go to the next pitch, which is from Easy Water for Everyone. And I give the floor to Mary Owusu.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. This is my first time here. So I am the Administrative and Project Support Officer at Easy Water for Everyone. This is a presentation on the topic, Leaving No One Behind, a Decade of Lessons Learned. Next slide, please. So looking at this slide, this is a picture of one of the communities we work in and how they get water. Easy Water over the 10 years has been committed to providing clean and safe water to remote communities with contaminated water sources. And with this, we have been able to impact on the health of the people we serve by reducing diarrhea incidences as well as other waterborne diseases at about 88%. Next slide, please. Among our few challenges we've had over the years, one of our major challenge we are facing right now is the decline in population. So with this, we may enter a community with about 2,000 people, but as time goes on, due to infrastructure and other things, they seem to migrate for better opportunities, shrinking the community and complicating the logistics and cost effectiveness of delivering sustainable water solutions. Despite this, we are still committed to those areas. And we have been able to stay afloat over the years by partnering or collaborating with the local government and community leaders to create tailored solutions that would ensure that no one is left behind. Our sustainable pay-to-fetch model and reliable maintenance empowers the communities to take ownership and drive a lasting change. You can join us in helping many communities we work in. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mary, for this wonderful pitch. Amazing work that you're doing. Yeah, if you have questions to Mary, please feel free to add them in the chat box. Then we can come back to that later. I'm now asking, is the third pitch presenter in the room? It's a pitch from Atra International and Victoria Frey. Are you around?
I think we can move to the discussion then.
Yes. Okay, then we still have 15 minutes for discussion. Is there anyone who has a question for the two pitches or for the team presentation? I see a question for the video, the Matsi Alipo project. Is there somebody around from the pitch? The Fisherman's Red Community Project?
Yes, I'm allowed. Yes, the cost is $100 for maintenance at the moment. Yeah.
Can you see the question? The question is the cost of $100 for maintenance, is it the cost per year?
Yes, that's the cost for the year to keep the water point going for a year. That is an African pump. So that's the present cost that we are working on. Yeah.
Okay. Hank, I hope your question has been answered. I see a question from Clarissa. I'd like to know what indicators are recorded in the app we saw in the video. I think, Harald, it's still a question for you.
Yeah, so basically there are several indicators that are recorded on the app, ranging from the present functionality as well as maybe status of the water point, as well as also we record telephone numbers for the water point committees. So these telephone numbers are used to update the functionality through our cost center. So we just use our database and then basically call the communities just to update the present functionality rather than physically going to the site to make a survey. So apart from that, there's also other indicators like sanitation and hygiene around the water point that is recorded, the composition of the committee, as well as when we are like making repairs together with the community. So we record all the parts that have been used to repair the water point and also the cost involved in the repair. On top of that, the parts are indicated or are marked with an identification mark so that we can trace or for quality control. So all that is recorded on the app. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see there's a follow-up question from Clarissa. How are you defining functionality?
Yeah, so at the moment, we are defining functionality basing on whether the water point is working or not working, and also the number of strokes that are being produced by the water point. If it ranges maybe from 46 to 52, we get the pump that is working. And also on top of that, the functionality is defined on the present physical status of the water point, because as we are making the telephone calls, the communities are also asked to elaborate on the present status of the pump, as well as the strokes.
Thank you. I think the video really inspired a lot of questions, so please stay with me. But if there are any questions for Mary, please also add them to the chat box. Another question from Kirsten. It would be great to know more about the different service delivery models in Malawi. Do you have an overview of what others are doing to professionalize service delivery in other parts of the country?
Yes, there are a number of different management models in Malawi, ranging from the community-based management model, where communities are given the task to look at the affairs of the water point. And of late, there are other agencies that are piloting professionalized maintenance arrangement, where they engage with the communities through service contracts, where the communities are able to pay the service provider for the service provided. Because there is another arrangement where the communities, there's an agency that facilitates a coordination between the communities and the area mechanics. So the area mechanics are responsible for the water points, and then the community pays to the service through the agency, and then the agency makes sure that all the area mechanics are doing their work. And also there are other arrangements that are being made by the major water boards, which is the direct service provision, where they are managing a pipe to water supply in urbans or peri-urban areas. So basically that's the arrangement in Malawi.
Thank you so much. Let me ask a question to Mary. If you're still around, yeah. Yes. So thank you for your wonderful presentation. What is your biggest lesson learned around leaving no one behind? What can we learn from your project?
Okay, so someone would respond to all those questions.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, so for us, I would say that it's actually a big challenge to say that we will not be able to leave anyone behind, especially with what we do, because we realize that once you are doing pay to fetch, you're looking at your investment and payback. So there are numbers, there are populations that we can't deal with. Initially, we're dealing with populations around 50, 100, and we realize that when it comes to pay to fetch, there are instances where the technology that you have cannot be able to deal with. So different technologies will have to serve different types of communities. And currently what we have to go beyond the numbers of 200 and go above 500 so that we can break even at least within the 5 years after our initial installation. So for example, like Mary mentioned, we had a community where we had an installation done, and before we could go in and open the taps, we had lost about 40% of the population, and we had to take everything out because what we had couldn't serve them. So for me, I would say that in the sector, there are more of collaboration is encouraged so that different solutions serve different communities and serve different people, because we can't have a one solution that fits every community. So it's actually partnerships and collaboration that will be able to ensure that within the sector we'll leave no one behind. But if you go in as an individual organization and what you do is borehole or what you do is what Easy Water does, it'll be difficult to serve everyone.
Yes, thank you so much. I think it's a wonderful message to focus on collaboration and yeah, we have to do it together to make sure we leave no one behind. I see Henk has another comment in the chat box, which might be linked a little bit. Don't know if you want to unmute and share your comments with us.
Yeah, hello. I was wondering, we all know that the people who have safely managed service or basic service somehow received a subsidy for CapEx, not for the CapEx, not for the maintenance, but for the investment. So is it not an idea to try to make it maybe a human right even to have the same subsidy for those who still lack basic service? Is it not should all people not have a similar right to similar subsidies?
Very good question. I don't know if I have the answer. If anybody has a suggestion, feel free to add to the chat box.
What do you think? Because you're in charge of the leave no one behind. What is your impression or your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's good that as a sector we think about subsidies, and I think big drinking water companies in Africa have, for example, the pro-poor tariffs, so a lower tariff for lower income communities to make it more affordable. I think it's, yeah.
But that is for the maintenance, the maintenance of the system. But what about the CapEx? Because we have 500 million people that still do not even have basic service in Africa. So it's mainly about the CapEx first.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. But I think at the same time, yeah, I think it's a discussion. How do we make sure that there's enough investment in the sector for CapEx? Because I think we see also a trend that there's less funding in the water sector in general. And I think in some countries, there's also less money for water compared to other areas. So I think it's definitely a topic that as a sector, we should continue to lobby for, and to make sure that, that we lower, we lower the gap and make sure that we leave no one behind. So I think it's also it's something we can discuss in the next one of the next team, because I think it links lots to sustainability as well. So I think there are different components to think about. But it's a good suggestion that we should, as a sector, continue to lobby for. But I don't have the answer for you, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Let me see if I skipped the question. We have 3 minutes left. I saw a comment that there will be a detailed prospectus on the Matsi Alipo project. So once it's ready, please share within RWSN so we can share with all of you. And if there's no other comments, I would like to thank the presenters for the pitch, for sharing your project. And I would like to encourage everyone to become part of the Leave No One Behind team group, and we can have further discussions on the D group. So I hand over back to Sean, I think. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Sandra, and thank you for those inputs and those great. It's great to see those different examples. So now we're going to move to. Let me just share the screen and do it properly this time. Our next theme: sustainable groundwater development, with David Inman from Water Mission and Roman Brentfjord from BGR. Gentlemen, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sean, and thank you, colleagues. My name is David Inman. The little acronym next to my name means I'm a professional engineer, but please don't hold that against me. I like people just as much as I like a good spreadsheet. I'm excited to be able to share a little bit of an update on the sustainable groundwater development theme for 2024 and a look ahead to 2025. I oversee what's called the Standard and Excellence Division at Water Mission. This is the division focused on engineering and technical services and support, program design and development, as well as technical innovation and long-term water services professionalized services. Water Mission is a nonprofit engineering organization. We are a faith-based organization based in the United States in the state of South Carolina. We are a WASH implementing organization, and we are implementing WASH programs in 4 countries in East Africa, in Kenya, Malawi, Tanzania, and Uganda. We also work in Southeast Asia and Indonesia. And then we're working in the Latin America regions in Peru, Mexico, and Honduras. I'm joined today by my colleague, Ramon Brentfuhrer. I'll turn it over to him and let him introduce himself and his role at BGR.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I'm Ramon Brentfuhrer from BGR. BGR is a Federal Institute for Geoscience and Natural Resources, which is like the Geological Survey. We are a more technical institution supporting the German government, but also partner countries in data collection, monitoring systems, and so on. I'm personally working in a project for policy advice. So we are advising our Ministry for Development Cooperation in groundwater management issues and questions, but we are also active in agenda setting and international conferences representing German development cooperation, and we are also engaged in the development of tools for data collection, capacity building, finance, governance, and so on. I'm also really honored to be a co-lead of the theme Sustainable Groundwater Development. I took over that position from Kerstin Deinert in January 2024. I would start now with a short introduction of the theme, just to make sure that everybody has an idea what is this theme focusing on. We have 3 sub-themes. The first one I present here is groundwater management. So when we talk about groundwater, it's an invisible resource. It's very much all about the knowledge and the understanding of the resource in quality, quantity, use, and recharge. This is a precondition for a sustainable management, but it's also a condition to assess the potential of groundwater for further development, for rural livelihoods, irrigation, and so on. It comes also to governance questions, so the protecting the resource, making sure that the groundwater resources are used sustainably. The second sub-theme is then about professional. Can you switch the slide, please? Or yes, professional water well drilling. This is not only a technical question, and it comes to the drilling of the well and the well construction, which is definitely important, and to build capacity on that. But it's also on supporting drillers in procurement processes, contracting, because this is in very large circumstances very challenging. And the network is very much engaged in mainstreaming materials and tools, but also in capacity, in training material and trainings. The last group, could you switch the slide, please? Yeah, this is, I think, the root of the RWSN. This is which started with hand pumps in '92, how Sean explained today. And I think you can correct me, but my impression it shifts more from the hand pumps into the solar powered systems today. But still, there's a lot of projects ongoing. Stop the Rot is maybe one of the most popular ones of the RWSN, but there's the network is still maintaining, updating standards and information, and supports the scaling up and sustainability of solar-powered pumping water systems. Yeah, I hand over to David again.
Thank you, Ramon. In this next section, we'll highlight a few of the 2024 activities that we conducted under the Sustainable Groundwater Development theme. And the first event that we bring attention to is a webinar that took place in May of 2024, focused on siting and maintaining solar-powered water systems and how to capacitate your staff. We had a terrific interaction and participation from colleagues from Practica, from Dorcas, from their Mozambique program. From Water Mission, we had one of our senior engineers join from our Uganda program. And then we had some colleagues from Global Water Center join to talk about some of their efforts to develop training courses on solar-powered water systems. The link to that webinar is posted here in this presentation. I encourage anyone who's interested in this to go back and watch this terrific webinar. So this was one of the webinars that focused on our theme for this year. And if you'll advance to the next slide, I bring attention of the members to a recent publication. Speaking of Kristen, she and some of her colleagues joined forces to develop a terrific guidance manual focused on helping funding agencies develop checklists that they can use to ensure quality of processes and services that they're procuring, to develop good boreholes and install quality materials in the hand pumps. If you're someone who relishes looking at a good checklist like I am, there's 4 checklists that are included in this guidance manual, specifically around direct implementation of boreholes, direct implementation of hand pumps, direct implementation of post-construction monitoring and inspection, and then with indirect implementation, looking at the enabling environment of the service delivery, making sure that it's set up to support this work well. This is in the library of the RWSN's website, so I point colleagues to that resource. And there's a lot of incredible information in the resource library at RWSN. I always find it fun to mine for great information in that. So if you'll advance to the next slide, please, Sean. I think there might have been a slide missed in the final, but I'll just call out before we jump into this question, a couple of other activities that took place. Water Mission, together with Global Water Center, worked in the East Asia Pacific Regional Solar Hub, which is a program of UNICEF, and it focused on delivering trainings on the design and solar-powered water systems in Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and Laos. And we also conducted an online course of solar-powered water systems, an overview of principles and practice. There's also ongoing work by colleagues at Global Water Center. They're going to be focusing on development of several different guides on operation and maintenance of solar-powered water systems. This guide will be released in January 2025, and I'm sure will be shared through RWSN channels. So we look forward to that guidance manual coming out. And then there'll be a suite of courses developed in 2025 on groundwater and boreholes. There'll be several subject matter experts contributing to Global Water Center on those efforts, including Hydraulica, BGR, WaterAid, UNICEF, and Ask for Water. So we look forward to being able to see some of these new courses released and access to RWSN members to participate in those courses. And then last, they're going to be developing a course on supply chain for rural water systems. Looking forward to strengthening supply chains behind. So now we come to a time of getting some input from our colleagues here. I don't believe that we had any pitches that were presented for the Sustainable Groundwater Development theme. So Ramon and I thought, what a terrific opportunity to get input from you all as we think about our focus for 2025. So with the question here, if you could please place in the chat box a topic that would be most relevant for your organization's work with sustainable groundwater development. We intend to take the feedback here and look at that as we plan out our work plan for 2025. If you want to do one-word responses, we would have fun with making that into a word cloud, but please post some thoughts in the chat box as we proceed. I'm seeing regulation, multi-purpose use water, colleagues, feel free to please continue to post in the chat here. Hand pump parts quality and control. Reliable water survey techniques and tools. Very good. Let's continue to the next slide, and we ask a series of questions here as we've started thinking about some potential themes. So when you respond in the chat box here, there's actually a poll that's going to come up. Which of the following webinar topics would be most helpful to your organization's work with sustainable groundwater development in 2025? Please make a single choice in the poll there that has just come up. And then the next question there, of the 3 focus areas of the sustainable groundwater development theme, which is most relevant to your work? Please make a choice there. All right. And I don't know if, Sean, you have access to share the poll results as those come in?
I will share, David. Just a minute. We are 56% participation, so I just wanted to give a little bit.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, please continue to participate in that. We would love to see it creep up towards 80 to 90% if possible.
Okay, I will close the poll now.
Perfect, thank you. And then once we take a quick glance at the poll results, here we go. So it looks like we had a tie for some of the main areas of interest for webinar topics there. So Ramon and I will have to flip a coin, it looks like, maybe when we think about the plan for 2025. So climate resilient wash case studies with sustainable groundwater development projects and programs, and then financial sustainability case studies with sustainable groundwater development projects programs. Maybe we can pull off 2, or we do a mashup of those 2 themes together. And then of the 3 focus areas, it looks like groundwater management, by and large, was the runaway here. The 3 focus here is groundwater management. So Ramon, that will be a helpful one for us to think about as we look at resources and training opportunities that are coming out. And thank you, colleagues, for continuing to post some ideas there and the topics that are most relevant and important to your work in sustainable groundwater development. If you will advance to the next slide, Sean, Ramon's going to walk us through a series of discussion questions.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, just read them here. What are some specific innovations your organization has developed or utilized in your groundwater development work in the past year? And how have they helped your work?
So colleagues, feel free to post thoughts of this in the chat. If there's someone that would like to share verbally on some of these specific innovations that either you've developed or utilized in your groundwater development work, we'd love to hear from you on this.
And you're also welcome to unmute and go into the discussion to have it more interactive. Would be also very, very welcome. Thank you.
We'll share from Water Mission's perspective, an innovation that we continue to work around is remote monitoring technology to monitor the production of solar-powered water systems. And we've also been looking at means to monitor water quality and groundwater depth in the same instance. I'm sure there's others using this technology and innovation approaches. I would love to hear from someone else on innovations they're using.
There is one question from Mohammed Faraoui. Could you unmute and raise your question, please?
Thank you, Mr. David and Mr. Ramon, for your presentation. Very interesting and very important. My question is about when we talk about sustainable groundwater development, we mean both quantity and quality of water, and how these two elements can be sustainable for water supply network in rural areas. Thank you.
Should we give that question to the audience? Anybody would like to reply on that? Should raise his hand. If not, we could also try to answer on that or reply on that. So no replies. So maybe I think rural areas is quite a challenge.
Yes, it is.
To have that. So BGR is working with drinking water protection zones. It's one thing to delineate these zones, but it's a very different thing to implement these zones, and this is mostly what is the projects are failing in. That I mean, protection zone 1 is the direct vicinity of the well, maybe 10 to 20 meters, no access. This is maybe not the challenge, but then protection zone 2, it's we calculate the 50-day line, 50 days of the groundwater as travels to the well. That there is some restriction on the land use. There's no animals could hurt in these areas, and the farming is very restricted. No use of pesticides and these things. And this is the more difficult issue in implementing these zones. Yeah, it's very often it needs a cooperation with land users, maybe some payments to replace maybe farmers or the people who owns herds and animals to replace their costs, and but it needs a lot of cooperation, communication, but also enforcement from the government. Do you have anything to add, or David?
Yeah, thank you, Ramon. Quantity and quality, two very important topics around sustainable development. I know for those that have gone through any of the solar-powered water system design courses that Global Water Center has offered, or that Water Mission has conducted, we focus on these two areas, especially careful planning around the water demands that are needed. I saw a colleague posted in the thought that the idea of multi-use water, this is especially important in areas where not only are you supplying human needs, but the needs for livelihoods. And so there's very careful considerations that have to be made about right-sizing the technology that's implemented and ensuring that service and accessibility and financial stability are afforded. I think for the sake of time, I do know we have some other questions we'd like to get to. Thank you very much for posting that. I also saw that Hank and Harlod both shared some innovations they've been working on with their organizations. These sound really interesting. I'd like to follow up at some point and learn more about these. Perhaps there'd be opportunities to share some of those through RWSN channels. Let's go to the next question.
Yeah, the next question fits very much into the next year's theme for the World Water Day and World Water Week. It's about it will be water for climate action, and so that's why we would like to know what are some of the most significant climate-related challenges affecting wash services and groundwater development in your area of work. Please feel free to unmute again or to put some information in the chat box.
I would love to know what specific methods or tools some of your organizations are using to assess climate-related risks, and how you're assessing the vulnerabilities of that. So also, if anyone has practical experience with that, please share some of the tools or methods you're using in the chat box. And
there's a reply from Steve Thompson. The rainy and dry seasons are becoming more unpredictable. I think this is definitely a challenge. And I think from my perspective, groundwater is maybe the best resource to adapt to these uncertainties.
Yeah. Steve, would you like to come off on mute and maybe give some context to your comment there?
Sure. Can you see me all right? Just for us, it's more around operationally as we rainy and dry seasons impact village access, community access. So for us, planning operationally has been a challenge. Not to mention what Ramon had mentioned earlier about groundwater being such an essential resource.
And Steve, is this in a particular geography where you're experiencing these challenges or across your implementation areas?
Most specifically in West Africa, Benin and Togo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then Hank also commented on boreholes, both the hand-dug wells and tube wells drying up. Hank, would you like to give some context to that?
Yes, I think the same as the former speaker is, we see increasingly that with the climate change, with the droughts and you know, the longer periods without rain, especially hand-dug wells tend to dry up, where many people depend on hand-dug wells where they don't have, you know, other sources, and some shallow wells. So there is I think the biggest challenge is to to infiltrate rainwater when it rains and store water. And the cheapest option probably is in the ground. So I think that technology that infiltrate rainwater are essential for the wash sector also. I give you one example. We worked with an organization called Tieni in Malawi, and they have a concept that is called deep bed farming. And deep bed farming consists of breaking the hard pan, so the top hard layer that is often human induced. And by breaking that hard pan, all the rain is going into the ground. They make deep trenches along the contour. And in areas where they do this, all the rain is going into the ground rather than, flowing off and causing erosion. And that in the long term will also be essential for water for domestic use. They use it for agriculture. They combine it with mulching and they increase the maize harvest. But in the long term, it's also essential for domestic use, for the water supply for villages and cities. So I'd like to make a call for exchanging ideas on a range of technologies that infiltrate rainwater.
Yes, thank you, Henk. And Barbara, you had an interesting comment you posted here about some of your organization's strategies to do better planning around the climate variability. Would you like to come on and share a bit more about your approach and strategy there?
Yeah, thanks for interesting and spot-on questions. We work a lot with community-based water tenure, which really starts at the community level with the multiple surface and groundwater sources, the multi-purpose infrastructures, self-supply, public support for the domestic users and the productive users. And of course, groundwater recharge is number one. Thanks, Henk, for raising that. Soil erosion, water and soil erosion conservation are key. And at some stage, there is just not enough water, especially in the dry season. And there is a special rapporteur, Pedro, Human Rights to Water. He proposes a very clearly a legally binding prioritization. First, water for life. That includes domestic uses, but also basic productive uses, because the inequalities are not so much in the domestic uses, but really in the productive uses. So there the question is, who gets it, the big, large-scale farmer or the mine, or does it go to small-scale food production, etc. So first water for life, then general interest, and then economic uses. A very powerful proposal, I think. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you, Barbara. I think time is more or less over now, and we have to hand over to the next theme. I think that discussion would need more time, and there's always more to discuss, but I think that helped us also to shape activities for the next year to get some inspiration. From your side, anything, David, you would like to add for the closing?
I would just say we appreciate the inputs from our colleagues here. This is helpful for Ramon and I as we think about how to best serve this community of practice and focusing on our theme areas in sustainable groundwater development. I saw that Kirsten Dennert had to drop off, and Ramon and I both miss her participation in this theme, but I know she's still carrying the Stop the Rot efforts loudly and proudly, and we're thankful for all of her great contributions to this theme as she continues to support. Back to you, Sean.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the inputs, particularly in the chat. Lots of really great stuff going on there. From Natalie about erosion, from Judith about cold climates, and whole issue of permafrost and those kind of environments that certainly you don't get in sub-Saharan Africa. But I think there's lots of things that we need to consider for all the different geographies that within our scope. So, right, now we move to the final theme, but certainly not the least. It's sustainable services. And we have three fantastic theme leaders, and I would like to hand over to them to take us through the next stage of this meeting. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Sin. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like first of all to thank all the organizers of this very important meeting for all effort you have done and you do, especially Mr. Sin and Mrs. Aline and all members of RWSN to promote and share experience and information about rural water supply all over the world. It is a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to address such as this distinguished audience. Let me first introduce Sustainable Service Team. In the left, Amalia Seker. She is a water resources and sanitation consultant at Agua Consult. And in the right, Tara Michel. She is program officer at GREAT, and me in the center. I am Farhawi Mohammed. I am head of water production department at the National Office of Electricity and Drinking Water in Morocco. The second, please. The next slide, please. What I would like to present to you today is about sustainability challenges for rural water supply. When we talk about sustainability challenge, we mean outdated infrastructure and inadequate maintenance often lead to leaks, breakdowns, and water losses. Rural water supply is known by its very low performances in general, and it is the cause of many problems of water service continuity. The second point is about lack of formalized and functional support structures for rural providers. The third point is related to large numbers of highly deconcentrated service providers that creates many problems for water supply water supply system, and high diversity of management models and technological options. The last point about sustainability challenges is related to limited regulation. Regulation is a very big problem in water supply management in rural areas and small towns from service authorities. Next, please. What are our priorities in 2024 and 2025? Our priorities concern many issues and aspects related to sustainable service and of rural water supply. The first is systematic institutional strengthening, sharing lessons learned on strengthening local and national systems and practical approach and overcoming tensions between working with the grain of existing social and institutional structure that are likely to be more sustainable, but less inclusive to some marginalized groups. The second point about thematic priorities is related to regulation and laws, engaging with regulators and sharing experience and identifying good practice in rural and small town regulation on how to balance tensions and trade-offs between competing economic, social, political, environmental, and cultural priorities. The second point about thematic priorities is related to professionalization, documenting and sharing management models, professional development and management practice, and their enabling system at local and national levels. That let's go to the next point about talking about financing. Financing is a big issue in rural water supply network especially in rural areas, because financing of life cycle costs and exploring ways to increase in financial sources and financial viability of rural water service across different contexts. And we talk about cost recovery, and the network is engaged in these issues. The last point about thematical priorities is related to resilient services. When we talk about sustainability, we talk about resilience, because resilience is very important in order to sustain our service. Sharing emerging practices and solutions for increasing the resilience of rural water service providers, with a specific focus on climate resilience, which has been identified by the network members as one of their main challenges. The next, please. The next slide. In this part of my presentation, I would like to talk about planned activities for 2025. What works for rural water service delivery, and how make this services sustainable. Then we have planned a webinar in March 2025. Also, we will present findings from a study in Ghana under the Real Water Initiative, and sharing experiences from all over the world. We talk about experience from Peru, and we talk about community-based organization, Morocco, and we can present a public provision of water supply in rural areas and small towns. In Senegal, we will explore the benefits of triple public-private partnership in rural water supply. And finally, in Cambodia, we present fully privately owned and run chains. The next, please. Also, planned activities for 2025 from challenges to change, and we will explore best practices for climate resilient WASH, and we will share findings from the shock wave and Osprey supported study, including an assessment of key barriers and gaps, and practical strategies for driving change using a theory of change. The next, please. The next. Other planned activities in 2025, and we realize a WhatsApp channel in French sharing updates of the RWSN, and join events with Coalition O and Susanna. So thanks, and my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and you are welcome for your question and discussion. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So now we are, we'll go to the question and answer. Anne-Leah, do you want to take us through the discussion?
Yeah, sure. Shan, thank you. And thank you, Mohammed, for presenting on behalf of the Sustainable Services Group. Maybe I just wanted to add that in contrast with all the other groups, we are a new team this year. So we basically started in July, and that's the reason why we weren't very active in this year in 2024, because we were still learning how to do the job, how to engage with the network. But we have a lot of new plans for 2025. As we said, we already have 2 planned webinars for March, the early webinar series, and the idea of this session is to welcome all of your opinions and suggestions on what to include. Other potential idea that we have is sharing the findings of a new study that's The SOAS, the SOAS, which is the Southern and Eastern and Southern Water Association of regulators in Africa. They are now developing some sort of guidelines for rural water supply, to how to regulate rural water supply, because as we know, regulations is deemed to be very important by many organizations. We just saw Clarissa mentioning that regulations was important for groundwater abstractions and we still believe it's really important for rural water supply. But what we've seen is that it's not something that it's been widely applied in rural areas because of the way in which rural service provision is done. As Mohammed mentioned at the beginning of his presentation, high numbers of service providers, or countries like Peru that have up to 30,000 service providers, countries like Colombia, which have 50,000 service providers. It's impossible to regulate that many service providers. So we're very much looking forward to the results of that SOAS study that will probably be done by mid-year in 2025. So that's also another activity that we're thinking of sharing with the network, what results of that study, which collects what's being done in countries that are actually trying to regulate rural areas and that are facing that challenge of those big like deconcentrated and very numerous service providers. But I guess that I will open the floor for suggestions and opinions on what we have planned for next year, and it'd be good to hear from the audience if you have any suggestions for the network on what we should pursue next year.
I think while people are thinking about that and typing their questions in, I mean, thank you for a great presentation, preparing a really exciting program for next year. I'm really looking forward to it. A question to Mohammed, because we haven't featured Morocco much, if at all, in RWSN before, so it's really fantastic to have you on the team. Could you describe to us what rural water supply looks like in Morocco? Is it lots of small pipe schemes? Are they gravity? Is it solar? Is it mixed? What is it? Community managed? Is it utility? What's the situation in Morocco?
Thank you, Mr. Sin, for this very interesting question. In Morocco, we have many authorities that is responsible of water management. In urban areas, we have the commune and the private sector that is responsible of water management. But in the rural areas, we have the National Office of Electricity and Drinking Water that is responsible, and we have NGOs. The NGOs also play a great role in management of rural water network and small town network in rural areas. The management of rural water network is, in my opinion, is very difficult, because there are a lot of problems of maintenance of equipment, the problem of financing, the problem of maintaining the equipment and facilities. That's why in the majority of cases, NGOs don't have the ability to manage this network, and also they give this service to the National Office of Electricity and Drinking Water and other private sector to manage the networks.
Gosh, yeah, so there's quite a lot of things going on there. So what's the role of the private sector? Because we hear a lot about the private sector more and more. I mean, that was more urban, I think, but are they running utilities or water kiosks, or what's their role?
Yeah, private sector, when we talk about private sector, we mean in some cases the public-private partnership and build and operate. And in some cases, there are a lot of big companies that manage the water network in urban areas, such as in Tangier or in Casablanca. But now the law is changing, and we talk about regional society, multi-service regional society in each region of Morocco. In Morocco, we have 12 regions, and in each region we create or SRM or multi-service regional company to manage all of the network distribution network and sanitation. And after 2025, we cannot have private sector in managing water network in Morocco. Also, we have only regional company, multi-service regional company.
Right. Great. Wow. So so yeah, to everyone, if they've got any comments or questions, please raise your hand. And Leah, coming to you, I know that you've been really busy this year with Real Water, and there's some really exciting stuff on the way. Is there anything that you can tell us yet about what we can expect to see soon from your work?
Yeah. Thank you, Sean. So in one of the webinars that we will do next year, we will portray the findings of the study that we did as part of the Real Water Initiative. And what we did, maybe you're not aware of what the Real Water Initiative is, but it's a research program that's funded by USAID and Agua Consult specifically. We conducted a research in Ghana that evaluated the performance of different management models in rural areas, but more importantly, what were the factors behind those management models that were actually driving performance. So not specifically about the service delivery model per se, but more about the practices and conditions. And the service delivery models that we evaluated were community-based management. They're called WSMTs in Ghana. CWSA, which is public provision, and there's a utility for rural areas in Ghana. And then we also evaluated a service delivery model that we named Safe Water Enterprises, which are in theory private companies, but that receive funding from international NGOs. So that's the case for Safe Water Network or Project Naji or Water4. So the results are ready. They have been already validated by the USAID team. And yeah, I think they're pretty interesting, because one of the things that we found is that there weren't dramatic differences across management models, and we were expecting performance difference to be great and significant, specifically between community-based management and the other two models. But you will see all the results soon, because the report will be published, I think, before the new year. So that and yeah, but apart from that, because it's a long report that probably you won't like to read other than the executive summary, we will produce 2 policy briefs on the findings and what do the findings mean to Ghana specifically, because they're undergoing reform at the moment, but for the wider sector as well, because we chose Ghana because it's a particular setting in which these 3 models operate in parallel. So it was like interesting to see how they perform comparatively. But yeah, we will have, other than sharing the results, which is also interesting, in the webinar, we will evaluate, because what we found, and one of the findings and the takeaways, which I think it's important for you to take home, is that it's, instead of following the service delivery model that is fashionable at the moment. In this moment, it seems to be that it's safe water enterprises and private companies. What we need to really do is focus on what's the practices behind those that are driving performance, because the sector has been shifting from community-based management, then first municipal management, then community-based management, and now private companies, and then some utilities. The shift per se is not what it's needed for better performance, but some very, very key practices that we have identified through this research. So in this webinar, what you will see is the experiences from countries that have managed to reach good performance in many cases, but all of them have different management models. So there's the case of Peru, which only has community-based management, and that's the only service delivery model that exists in rural areas. Then there's the case of Senegal, which is famously known for its public-private partnerships in managing rural areas. Cambodia, which is the only country in the world except for the UK that has fully privately owned and run rural schemes, which is a pretty interesting case study. And then finally, we'll have the case of Morocco, which, as Mohammed explained, has these utilities, regional utilities who also serve rural areas. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that discussion, and we're here in case you have any questions and if you have any suggestions for next year as well.
Brilliant. Does anyone have any comments or questions around that? Because I think this is a really fascinating point, because over the last few years, there's been a kind of a tussle between different management models. Yay, community management. No, community management sucks. Oh, we got to have, safe water enterprises or government-led or whatever. And what you seem to be saying is that doesn't matter. the kind of the ownership model, it's what. Could you explain a little bit more about what you mean by management practices? Could you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So what we did for a study, and I'll be brief because I know that we're almost reaching the end of this meeting, is that we evaluated 55 different practices and conditions that were pre-identified actually by network members as practices and conditions they thought were good practices. So those span over 8 domains. They are on technical management, financial management, regulations, governance practices. There were many practices and conditions that we evaluated. Some of them we couldn't because those practices just didn't exist at all in Ghana. For example, the regulation aspect we weren't able to evaluate. But what we found in the end was that sorry, my dog is barking, but what we found in the end is that the practices for which we found evidence that drive performance are the following: are conducting audits, both at the accounts at the rural. And here we're only talking about rural pipe schemes. We're not talking about hand pumps and other smaller service providers. But what we saw drug performance was conducting audits, technical supports being given by higher levels of the service provider or by the service authority, financial support as well, which is is very obvious. Higher tariffs were driving better performance, and also one that was more important than higher tariff was better revenue collection, which is interesting as well. And finally, the use of innovative, let's say, tools like monitoring information systems or automated, let's say, management of the system itself. Also, that seemed to be important in driving good performance. But yeah, I may be forgetting 1 or 2 practices, but we also found other practices that are thought to drive good performance that didn't have any effect in our case in Ghana. So you'll see the full detail of the research, which was more than a year-long research and was pretty comprehensive. You will see it soon, probably before the end of this year. So yeah.
Awesome.
So there you go.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. James, you wanted to come in with a comment or question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, my computer was misbehaving. I had to switch to my phone. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in, more of a comment that I read the report for this tomorrow's webinar, and I couldn't be more happy with it. And just to answer your point, I think what it affirms sort of what I've always believed in, that it matters. The key variable is not really the actual model or the community utility, but the extent of external support, whichever model. So community management works very well if there's a very strong local level, district level external support supported by sufficient regulations and all that can be done. We have several professional commercial utilities here managing rural water supply systems, but they have failed terribly because the extent of support provided is weak. So I am of the same view that the major key design variable is how we structure and operationalize the system and the structures for this support, which is, I find, quite critical to the success of the water supply schemes. Just wanted to add that, yeah. And I think the report brings that out very well, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a separate piece of work, but also kind of aligned, isn't it? Because I think, Anne-Lee, you were involved with that water aid piece of work as well, or was that different? No, that was different
I was
colleagues.
involved only for Nigeria, but yeah. Yeah,
okay. So that's a plug for the webinar tomorrow. Alina's put the comments in the chat box. So okay, well, we're coming to the end of this section. Before we wrap up with sustainable services, just Mohammed, is there anything you'd like to come back on, particularly on this point about the role of external support and some of the management practices? Is that what you see? Is that what you experience in Morocco?
Yeah, I will add that sustainable service of rural water network is based on three or four issues. The first is the financing and the engagement, the involvement of all stakeholders. If the stakeholders are not involved, there is no sustainable service to manage rural water network. The second point is the cost recovery. Unfortunately, in rural areas, in some cases there is no cost recovery of the project, and we cannot we cannot proceed to the maintenance and the equipment, and the reliability of this equipment is very important to sustain the service. And the third point, in my opinion, is the quality, is the water quality. And I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Sin, because we are talking about this issue in chlorination of rural water network, because the water quality is very important and the most important in this situation. And the third point, the fourth point is about cooperation and collaboration and capacity building, because in some cases we don't reinforce the capacity to manage the network and to maintain to proceed in the operations of maintenance of this. I think that if we can make or take all of this aspects together in our network, we can have a sustainable service of this systems. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great. Well, I mean, thank you to all of our theme leaders. Thank you to all of you as an audience for participation over the last 2 hours. It's been really great to hear all this stuff that's going on and what's happening. So now I would like to hand over for the final remarks to David D'Army. I'm just going to share my screen again, and who is going to give us his final thoughts on this meeting.
Great, thank you, Sean. I know the time is really short, and I'm just going to beg and ask everybody to stay connected just a couple more minutes. I've shortened my remarks because I know, for the sake of time, for everybody's time, I'm not going to have the opportunity to share all my impressions for each theme. But as we do conclude today's meeting, I just want to take a moment to reflect on the rich discussions and insights shared, and remind you to stay connected, as there is a webinar survey at the end of this meeting. So today's annual meeting has been really a valuable opportunity to reflect on everything that's been accomplished this year. The wide array of accomplishments is impressive, and I want to congratulate everyone who presented today and everyone who's participated this year in advancing the network's reach and impact. All of the outcomes this year paved the way to go into 2025 and beyond. So the three themes, leave no one behind, sustainable groundwater development, and sustainable services, they collectively address the complexity of system strengthening in the rural water sector by recognizing that they are interdependent and must function together for lasting impact. The Leave No One Behind theme emphasizes the need for inclusivity and equity, ensuring that marginalized communities are not excluded from accessing safe water. However, access alone is not enough. It must be supported by sustainable groundwater development, which ensures that water resources are managed efficiently. And at the same time, sustainable services really underline the importance of maintaining these systems over time, emphasizing the role of professional development, professional management, and reliable infrastructure, and financial sustainability. When we think about it, these themes are not standalone. They form a cohesive framework where each one addresses a critical aspect of strengthening systems. This is very exciting to me. This is what it takes to keep up with the complexity of wash systems. So needless to say, all three themes and the themes that were presented in the first round earlier today are directly linked to RWSN's goal of ensuring equitable and sustainable access to water. So as we move forward, let's keep this momentum from today's conversations and work together to make this vision a reality. I do want to encourage you all to reach out to everyone who presented with your questions and comments. Don't stop here at this meeting. This is really a chance to connect among experts. Thank you very much.
Great, and thank you, and thanks to everyone involved, and have a great festive season and the end of the year, and see you again next year. But hopefully we'll see a lot of you tomorrow for the final webinar in our series on professionalizing rural and small town water supply management, which has been supported by WaterAid, which starts off at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Central European time. So until then, thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you, everyone.